Welcome to the next video on humanoid AI in Unity. This time I'm going to review some sets of human models that we can get from the Unity Asset Store. The goal is to get a collection of 3D human models that are easy to use and that look reasonably good. I looked at 4 different model sets. I had expected that they would not be that different from each other, but I was surprised at how different they are. To give some structure to the comparison, I defined a short list of criteria. Are the human models compatible with Unity humanoid animation? To test this, I will take a human model from each of the assets and run it in the test scene that I set up in the previous video. In that video, we used Space Robot Kyle. In this video, we will upgrade from the robot to humans. Is the asset well organized and easy to understand? Or does the asset have its own complex conventions? In other words, does the asset package have a clean and easy to understand architecture? How much can the models be customized, and is it easy to do so? Do the models look good with a reasonable level of detail? Does the asset include anything besides the models? That may not be a benefit for our purposes if the extras add complexity. The prices for the 4 assets range between $23 and $35 and are sometimes on sale. So they aren't free, but they aren't too expensive either, and the prices are similar among the 4 assets that I looked at. I will assign a green, yellow, red score for each of the assets for each of the criteria. Let's start with the Toon City People asset. The asset has a very clean and easy to understand structure. There are 2 idle animation clips and some very short README documents. The models are under prefabs. There are source models that have 10 female and 10 male character models, and also a larger collection of variants. The models have a good variety of hair color, clothing, and so forth. Can we add one of these models to our test scene? I just drag it in. I copy Robot Kyle's transform and paste it into the new human model and then disable Robot Kyle. The model is already rigged as humanoid and has an animator component. I need to copy in the robot animation controller which we made in the previous video. I also need to add the robot walk script from the previous video. I then adjust the camera rig to focus on the new model rather than Robot Kyle. Run the scene and it works. That was very easy. Customization is also very easy. The model actually contains multiple heads, hairstyles, and so forth, with only one turned on at a time. These sliders make it easy to select which is turned on. So we can switch hairstyles, heads, skin color. These hats aren't showing up well. I think they require smaller hair. Same with the headphones. Let's try smaller hair. Now we can see the headphones and the hats. There are different choices for clothing. We can add glasses. Overall, I would give high marks to Toon City People, keeping in mind that it has a cartoon style. Next, let's look at low poly animated people. We can see right away that the folder structure looks more complex. There is a document, which is nice. It lists the models that are included. Also, animation clips are included along with textures. Then it talks about scripts that are included for wandering. That might be of interest to drill into in a future video, but for now we really just want the character models. The models are in the prefabs folder. We can preview the models. Let's choose the female doctor and add her to the scene. The inspector looks weird. I can't see the whole thing. If I drag it way out, I can see everything. Apparently, this asset customized the inspector, especially for the wander script, but I'm not even interested in that. I'm going to remove these extra components that I don't want. And then the inspector looks the way it normally does. As before, I will adjust the model's position, disable the other model, add our robot controller. Even though she isn't a robot, they share the same humanoid control. And also add the robot walk script. And finally, direct the camera rig to target the new model. We run the scene, and again, this model works. On the positive side, this asset comes with a large variety of pre-made models. On the negative side, these models cannot be further customized. The low polygon shapes make the models appropriate for running on low-end devices, like for a game that runs on an older cell phone. Although for running on a device with reasonable power, we may not need to have this low polygon appearance, and some people may find it less appealing. Finally, the models come tightly packaged with a bunch of scripts, like the wander script, and for our purposes of just wanting the character models, I actually find that to be more negative than positive, because we just have the extra step of taking out the parts that we don't want. Next, let's look at the Advanced People Pack 2. There is a README file that is very terse. There is a YouTube video which has the most documentation I was able to find. In the prefab folder, there are a few models. Let's try adding one to the scene, and for an apple-to-apple comparison, there seems to be another female doctor. We'll go through the same process of adjusting the character's position, and disabling the previous character. We have a non-standard way of adding the animation controller to an asset-specific component and then clicking on Apply LOD Levels. This was not obvious to me at first. The model has several submodels having different levels of detail, or LODs. I need to add our robot walk script to each of these. We direct the camera rig to target the top level model. We try to run, but the camera does not follow. We actually need to direct the camera rig to a specific LOD model and then it does work. Do we really need the complexity of these different models having different levels of detail? Let's take a look at the base model having different levels of detail. Instead of high, medium, low detail, which is what we would expect to see, I would say these have low, lower, and lowest detail. I don't think we need the lower detail models. We can't specify in the custom inspector that we don't want the lower levels, and that simplifies the structure somewhat. It is possible to customize the model using the custom inspector. The randomize function is interesting. Here we have a doctor wearing firefighter boots and an army helmet. I did find that it is tricky to save any changes. Hit the wrong button and the changes are lost. Overall, I would say that the varying levels of detail adds a lot of complexity. I struggled to figure out how to get a model from the Advanced People Pack to work. And although I did ultimately figure it out, the other assets were all a lot easier. Let's look at one more package from the Unity Asset Store, the All-Star Character Collection. We can see that a lot of different animation clips are included, not only for walking and running, but also for different kinds of combat. The models are in categories like Amazing Amazon, Barbaric Brutes, and so forth. If we look at some of the models, we see that the characters are dressed for some kind of medieval combat, including weapons. Maybe this folder called Civilian Chicks will have models we can use. These have contemporary clothing, but still have a lot of weapons. Let's drag one into the scene, adjust its transform, and disable the previous model. The model looks a bit strange, and we can see in the hierarchy that the model has 6 faces and 16 hairstyles, and they are all turned on. Let's disable all but one face and one hairstyle. We can try turning on the different hairstyles one by one. This is similar to the Toon City People that we already looked at, except that package had nice sliders for selecting the hair and the face and other things. We can turn off all these weapons in the hierarchy. Of course, if we do want a character with a weapon, we have a bunch to choose from. This model has sort of comic book heroic proportions, but overall the model looks to be of higher quality than the other cartoony and low polygon models that we looked at before. We need to add an animator component and locate the model's avatar which is shared with other models from the set. Again, we need to add our animator controller and walking script, and also direct the camera rig to follow this character. We give it a try. And it works. And finally, we will look at one more option, the Autodesk Character Generator tool. This is online, not in the Unity Asset Store. You can create human characters for free, or with a paid subscription, you get more options and can generate higher quality characters. There are a variety of starting templates, and then you can customize the face, the skin, the eyes, the hair, the body, and the clothing. When you are finished, you need to wait while the tool assembles the model. You then have different download options, including Unity FBX format. Note that crowd and low resolutions are free, while downloading medium and high resolution requires a paid Autodesk subscription. Once the Unity FBX file is downloaded, it can be easily imported into Unity by dragging it into the project window. By default, the model has generic rigging, but can easily be switched to humanoid rigging. We need to extract the textures and materials that are embedded within the model. We can then add our Autodesk character to the scene. It actually has some embedded lighting that I will turn off. Then the usual process of adjusting the model's position, and adding our controller and script. And it works. So here is a gallery of all the human models, one each from each Unity asset set that we looked at, plus the Autodesk Character Creator. There is clearly a difference in the complexity and visual appearance of the models, and as we saw, some were easier than others to import and configure. As I said at the beginning, I've been keeping a scorecard on these assets by the 4 criteria: compatibility with Unity, ease of use and understanding, whether the models have a lot of variety and can be customized, and the appearance of the models. There are dozens of models and tools available. It would be nearly impossible to provide an exhaustive review of every option, so this is just intended to be a sample to look at some options and provide some suggestions on what could be used. I found both low poly animated people and the advanced people pack to be more complex to use than the other options, plus the models were very polygonal. If you run on a low power device and need low poly models, you may not have a choice, but otherwise the look of these models, at least to me, is a bit less appealing than the other models. So what would I recommend? There are several good options, and it depends on what you want to do. Toon City People is a very solid choice, especially if you like the cartoony style of its models. The asset was very easy to work with, came with a good variety of models, and plus allowed the models to be customized very easily. The All-Star Character Collection had human models with sort of superhero proportions. If that works for you, this could be a good choice, especially if you want to make use of the weapons and the battle garb that is included with that asset. Finally, if you don't mind spending a few minutes creating each model, the Autodesk Character Generator is a nice option. I think its only downside is that unlike the other options, you don't get a set of starter models. You need to create each one using the web tool, which, as I showed, is not difficult. Do remember that for free, you can only download lower resolution models. If you want to get the highest resolution models, you do need to have a paid Autodesk subscription. So I hope that this video helps you create your own cohort of human models to be non-player characters in games and simulations. Starting with the next video, I will talk about how we can add AI to these human models to bring them to life. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing so you hear about new ones as I make them. So far, I've been keeping pretty close to my goal of making a video per week. This one was pretty long, and the next ones will be shorter. But see you next time for more humanoid AI in Unity.